Folks, we are back. How we doing out there? Okay, we lost our joiner, but we're good. All right, let's see. We've got our very special political guest on our politics segment here. Folks, very special guest, Dinesh D'Souza. Dinesh, are you on the line with us?
I'm right here.
Very good. Well, thank you very much for joining us on the show, especially our local Dallas-Fort Worth area show. And I tell you, we got some very interesting messages when we put this out that you were coming on. We got a lot of great feedback. And then, of course, there's that negative feedback that's out there as well. So happy to have you on the show. Checked out the Hillary's America earlier this week when we got confirmation you were coming on the show. It was great. I've read the book. I also read Stealing America. By the way, there was a standing ovation at the end of the screening that we were in, so looks like it's doing great out there.
Yeah, I'm very happy to hear that. The movie is just in its second weekend, and it's already in the top 10 political documentaries of all time. It's the number one documentary of the year this year, 2016. This weekend will surpass Michael Moore's iconic film, Roger and Me. So we're thrilled with the way it's doing, and it's opening up a lot of eyes. I think it's helping to unify Republicans, and I hope independents and Democrats see the movie, because I think it'll get them re-examining some of their assumptions and just thinking.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I thought in the movie as well as in the books, let's talk about how, you know, the theft of Republican ideas, the theft of Republican accomplishments, really since the Civil War and Abraham Lincoln. You really cover that very well in the documentary and in the books, and it's essential to discussing, you know, this overall topic today. And how did the Democratic Party steal those accomplishments and those ideals from the Republican Party, and how it's propagated by the media and by Hollywood currently?
Yeah, I mean, if you went to an ordinary Democrat or black guy and you said, "Hey, which is the party that ended slavery?" They'd probably say the Democratic Party. Which is the party that was the party of the Ku Klux Klan? They'd say, "Well, it's probably the Republican Party." The truth is the exact opposite. The Democratic Party is the party of slavery, the party of segregation, of Jim Crow, of the Klan, of lynching, forced sterilization. The Democrats are the ones who interned Japanese Americans during World War II. So amazingly, a lot of these crimes that are blamed on the South or blamed on America, they're not the fault of the South. They're not the fault of America. They're the fault of the Democratic Party. And we lay this case out in the film, and it's irrefutable. So the critics are thrashing around, but they've been unable to find a single fact in the movie or in my accompanying book, which has a lot more information than the movie, that's wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, facts are stubborn things. They are, and they're all right there. And unfortunately, Hollywood just kind of goes along with it, and the media kind of just goes along with it, and it's very disturbing. And
I think you put your finger on it when you said earlier that the left dominates academia, they dominate the media in Hollywood, and those are the three big megaphones of our culture. So when you dominate those, you're able to put out a lot of propaganda, a lot of misleading information, and no one has a loud enough voice to say differently.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into the part about, obviously in 2012, you put out Obama's America, and quite possibly that led to you having to go away for a little while. Now, the Clinton appointee, Berman, decided he just wanted to rock your world. And, this guy, through reading and also going online and researching, was he just a dog on a chain and they said release the hounds, or was this a case of he just said, you know what, I've got an opportunity to really rock this guy's world because he's a Republican, he's a conservative, and him being a liberal judge, he just said, you know what, I'm going to go after him?
Now, I made a mistake in exceeding the campaign finance laws by $20,000. I didn't have any corrupt motive. I was actually giving money to a college friend of mine running for the U.S. Senate. Now, normally this is something that is not treated as a criminal matter, but in this case, the Obama administration tried to lock me up for up to 2 years. Now, frankly, if I had been locked up for 2 years, I'd be in jail right now, and I wouldn't have been able to make this movie. I think that was their goal. Now, the Clinton judge, Mr. Berman, did not go along with that, but he did sentence me to 8 months of overnight confinement. I'm not ashamed of it. I took that stuff and put it right in the movie, as you saw, and I turned the lemon into lemonade by making it a learning experience, learning something about criminal rackets, learning in a sense how some of the same techniques that are used by criminal gangs to shake down people, extort money from them, are used politically by Hillary and Obama and the Democratic Party to do its racketeering operations.
Yeah, so you really had an epiphany being up close and personal with them and seeing, you know what, this is exactly what the Clintons are doing, and much of the Democratic Party and the liberals on the left are doing behind the scenes in politics. They're doing exactly what criminals do on the street.
Absolutely. And very often we miss that because we think of politics as merely a kind of a debate. And, when you listen to the whole song and dance routine coming out of Philadelphia last week, from the Democrats, you get the idea that none of these people actually even care about themselves. They're just trying to work for us. They're devoted to the ordinary guy and the little guy. They tirelessly work for minorities. Now, first of all, historically, that's nonsense. The Democratic Party has been the deadly enemy of immigrants and minorities. It's been the enslaver and segregator of blacks. And they don't care about them any more today than they did before. Before, they just wanted to steal their labor. Now, all they want is to steal their votes. And yet, they put on this big pretense so it's one thing to be a criminal. I mean, I can kind of understand Luca Brasi in The Godfather, but if Luca Brasi tried to wear a halo, that would be a bit too much. And that's the case with the Clintons. They're racketeers. This is Bonnie and Clyde. They've been running their racket since the Arkansas days. When they were in the White House, they were selling presidential pardons to big-time racketeers. And so these people are on the make. They're in it for themselves. And so to listen to all this rubbish about how they sort of are undyingly devoted to the welfare of others, it's a bit too much.
Yeah, I agree. Let's get into a little more meat and potatoes. I want to talk about Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger, and I also want to get to uranium. Let's start off with Planned Parenthood. If you're an African American in this country and you are not outraged by Planned Parenthood that is stuck in mostly black neighborhoods, and Hillary Clinton is behind this. She's supported it. She's a big proponent of the Margaret Sanger thought process, and this is flat out trying to keep the African American population down and control it. If you're not outraged by that as an African American out there, then what would?
Well, the important thing to realize is that Planned Parenthood and Margaret Sanger, they're not about choice. People say, well, they want you to choose how many children you have. No. Margaret Sanger wanted wealthy white people to have more children and poor brown and black people to have fewer or no children at all. And she had this thing called the Negro Project, which was basically to reduce the Negro population through a voluntary birth control if possible, but forced sterilization if necessary. Now, Margaret Sanger was a kind of inspiring person. She inspired the Nazis. The Nazi sterilization policies of the 30s were modeled on some of the Margaret Sanger ideas in America. And then later, Hillary Clinton recently goes to Houston to get the Margaret Sanger Award and talks about how great Margaret Sanger was. So these ideas of Margaret Sanger they're not dead. They're not buried. They're actually alive and well. And today, most Planned Parenthoods are in the inner city. And today, Planned Parenthood still has a Negro Project, except it's just called Planned Parenthood.
Yeah, absolutely. And everyone, not just minorities, should be worried about this because, this project, we're talking about they want the best of the best. This is eugenics. We should all be worried about this. And if you're voting for Hillary, you're saying, okay, that's okay. That's a good thing. It's a good thing to keep certain populations down because we don't like them. We want only certain people to move forward in the population. And this is ridiculous. And voting for Hillary, that's what it is. I want to get to uranium. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about Justra and how this whole process went with the Kazakhstan and then getting Russia picking up one-fifth of our uranium.
The uranium example shows how the Clintons operate and how they treat U.S. foreign policy. So the billionaire Frank Justra, a Canadian billionaire who has an interest in getting uranium contracts and uranium mining rights around the world, wanted a lucrative uranium contract in Kazakhstan. And since he couldn't get it, he went with Bill Clinton, his buddy, and the two of them went and sort of sweet-talked the dictator over there into granting this uranium concession to Frank Giustra. Now, in exchange for Bill Clinton's help in securing this, Giustra began to pour millions of dollars to the Clintons and to the Clinton Foundation. Hillary Clinton, by the way, sat as Secretary of State on a committee that had to approve this uranium deal because at the end of the day, this uranium company called Uranium One began to buy uranium assets in the United States. In other words, Giustra's company was not content with the Kazakhstan contract, but began to buy uranium here. And then the Giustra company was acquired by the Russian government. So in effect, we were talking not about Giustra controlling American uranium, but Vladimir Putin controlling American uranium. Well, Hillary Clinton signs off on the deal along with some other agencies. The sale goes through, and then tens of millions dollars in payoff money flows into the Clinton Foundation. So you see the maneuver. Step one, Bill is kind of the down payment guy. He collects the first money. Then Hillary modifies American policy to do what the donor wants, and then the donor, in quote, gratitude, dispatches tens of millions of dollars to the Clinton Foundation. So this is basically, you could call it a selling of American foreign policy racket. And this is what Hillary says, I traveled millions of miles when I was Secretary of State, but in terms of actual policy, she accomplished nothing. No treaties, no trouble spots healed, and not even an important conference around the world. But what she's doing is basically looking out for herself, looking out for the foundation, making money on the side, operating as a kind of individual broker, collecting 10% wherever she goes.
Right, absolutely. And the fact that she was sitting in office while this was happening, and then, okay, you're like, okay, quid pro quo with... but once Russia became involved, okay, and all of a sudden U.S. uranium assets are going to Russia through the sale of this company. To me, this goes even above and beyond everything they've done so far, and this goes to treason. Is this not treason?
Well, it would be treason. Ironically, if you look at the people who have been spies against America, who sold nuclear secrets to the Russians, the Philby conspiracy in London, the Rosenbergs. Ironically, those people were dedicated communists. They were doing it because they believed in the communist ideology. The shamefulness of the Clintons is they don't really believe in anything. Even Obama's ideological. Obama has an ideological goal. Now, I think it's a twisted, perverted goal, but nevertheless, there it is. The Clintons are all about themselves. This is Bonnie and Clyde in the White House. And so they've been running these rackets for a long time, but it's terrifying to think of what they would do if the ultimate levers of power were put in the hands of these two depraved crooks.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's think about this. If when she was Secretary of State, she helped run through giving 1/5 of all of our uranium assets here in the U.S., and let's talk about uranium. I mean, hello, this is a nuclear-grade weapon. It can be used for weapons of mass destruction, and we're saying, okay, we'll give that to basically our chief rival in Russia. To me, that's treasonous. Think about what she might do if she actually makes it into the Oval Office. Absolutely unbelievable. Let's, we're running short on time, and I know I'm fast-pacing you, and I apologize, but I just wanted to get so much in. Let's bring it on back to Texas. Quite honestly, Texas, if the Cruz Republicans stay home, then quite possibly Texas could go to Hillary. And, a lot of folks that were Cruz fans, is very close here in Texas. A lot of Cruz fans do not like Trump. And that worries me greatly, and particularly with, our strong liberal presence in Dallas County here in DFW, but then, of course, strong liberal presence in Austin, San Antonio, and Houston as well.
Yeah.
What do we need to do here in Texas? What do we need to do here in Texas?
Look, I love Texas. I actually live part-time in Texas. My wife, Debbie, is from Houston. We were married a few months ago, and we were actually married by Rafael Cruz, Ted's dad. So we love Ted Cruz. But let me say this. American politics is fought in teams. There is no way to stop the Hillary Democrats without voting for the Trump Republicans. There is no third option. And so this never Trump stuff has got to stop. It's entering into the twilight zone. It should be never Hillary. And so if you let me say, our website for the movie, Hillary's America, the movie.com, It's playing all over Dallas. It's playing all over the country, 1,200 theaters. But if you plug in your zip code, it'll tell you where it's playing near you. Go see the movie and get the book, because this will equip you. It'll show you the stakes involved. It'll fire you up. As I said earlier, the movie helps unify Republicans, and it helps us show that at the end of the day, this is something in which we've got to stop Hillary and this Democratic gang from doing what they've been doing to the country for a long time. But right now, the American dream hangs in the balance. Too much is at stake.
Absolutely. I highly recommend, folks, you need to go check out Hillary's America. It's in the theaters. Grab the book, and grab the book that just came out late last year that kind of goes with it, Stealing America. These are, you need to know what you're up against out there when you're thinking about, well, maybe I'll just vote for Hillary because, as first woman, we'll make history. We're talking about acts of, in my opinion, treason, folks, and what would she do in the office? You talk about the American dream at the stake, and you're absolutely right. And one thing I wanted to end on a positive note, something that you said in the documentary when you were talking about teaching English, and you said anyone can come here and become an American, and that's very unique because you can't go anywhere else and become that nation. You can't go to Mexico and become a Mexican. You can't go to India and become an Indian. But yet anybody can come to America and integrate and become part of America and become an American, and that's very unique. And I thought that was extremely well said and goes, I think, to everybody's heart.
Absolutely. We become an American by embracing the laws, the Constitution, and assimilating to the American way of life. And those are the kind of immigrants we want. And if you don't believe in that and you don't want to do that, stay home.
I agree. Well said. Mr. D'Souza, thank you so much for coming on the show. Sorry to rapid pace you through all of that, but I had so much I wanted to talk to you about. Extremely appreciate you on the show. Folks, everybody catch Hillary's America. It's on screen now, and grab the books with Dinesh D'Souza. Thank you, Dinesh, so much for being on the show.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, folks, another great episode this week. By the way, we're live next Sunday, 8 to 9, just like we are every Sunday. Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters will be on the show next Sunday. Folks, Mike Kruizinga, your host. We're out of here.
News and information 570 AM.
96.3 FM HD2. KLIF Dallas. KSCS FM HD2 Fort Worth. KLIF.com.
A Cumulus station.